Well, hello everyone, we're back with the GCM Scale Garage here talking about the Skeleton J2 chassis. And in part 3 here in this new video we're going to have a look at the suspension setup that we're using. As you can see, we're starting to create what looks a lot more like a complete truck here. And we'll talk a little bit about the equipment that we're using for this build. And let me give you a view of the back here. You saw in the last video that we were installing the bumpers on the frame, and so here's what the truck looks like right now with these great bumpers on here. We're using the Rampage SCX 10 bumpers front and back, and this is a really great fit. This bumper is just a great fit for this body. And of course we have the it's got the swing tire. So I was thinking maybe we should actually make an opening tailgate on this truck and then use the back for the battery. I haven't really decided how to do that yet, but this is a fantastic way of getting access to the back of the truck and still having lots of protection. So certainly I'm enjoying the way that these bumpers look, and as you can see, the tire profile is just fantastic. We're using the GCM Detroit 8-hole beadlock wheels, and this is the base of the beadlock wheel here. There's a beadlock setup video on our YouTube channel if you want to have a look at some other wheel offerings. And we're using the 1.7 inch Baja Claw tire, which is from RC 4-wheel drive. So it's a really super tight flush tire fit. We really love the way the stance is on this, and of course because this is our class 1, we want lots of fender coverage. We want to keep the truck nice and small and compact, and yet really capable as an off-roader. So there's the rear look, and we'll have a look up front here. So the front Rampage bumper fits really well with the body as well. Just very happy with the proportions. I think we're going to use the mini shackles on here instead of the larger ones just to tidy it up. So let's have a look at our suspension. As you can see, it's all sprung here. The truck is ready to go out and rock, and I'm going to give you a quick update on what's happening underneath the body here. So let's have a look at the shock setup here now. We've got the body off the truck, and I want to show you a little bit of a highlight of what we're using here for our suspension setup. This chassis is just full of options. As you can see here, we're using a Proline Scalar 90mm truck shock. This is a pretty common shock for a honcho or axial truck replacement. I've seen them used in all kinds of custom builds. It's a fairly small diameter, which is nice to use, and it gives you options of having internal springs or external springs, and in this case we're going to use an external. We've taken the dual spring rate out of it and used only a single spring on top, and that of course moved our adjuster way up. So we've got a nice short spring on here. As you can see, we've got a full shock travel. The shock is mounted at the bottom of the K44 suspension mount here, and all the way up to the center hole on our shock tower. So there's 5 holes on top where you can put a shock. Now with our full 90mm shock here, we're still only in the middle of the 5 holes to get our actual ride height, and that's with the suspension, without suspension compression. So we're using the spring to hold up the whole truck. We don't have the battery in yet. There's still a few electronics to go in, and so for that reason we decided to mount the shock up top right in the middle hole, and then if we have to add some spring preload, we can adjust it on the spring side. So we've got full travel up front. The K44 has no problem clearing inside there, and the 90mm scalar shock goes full extension and full compression, no problem in the front. So lots of movement in the front. The tires that we've got on here are actually a 1.7 inch Baja Claw from RC 4-wheel drive, and we've put them in our Detroit 8-hole beadlock rims from GCM, and it's a 1.9 wheel with a 1.7 tire, and it gives us a really nice scale profile, and it's a nice size, it's a nice width, and of course good class 1 legal tire. Now out back, get this turned around. Out back we've done something a little different because we have the shock tower sitting right inside the back seat on the rig. As you know, we're trying to use this Jeep body, two-door body, and we don't want to cut anything off of this body so that we can keep the full interior. And we also like having a good suspension travel, and so we decided we were going to use the top hole in the shock tower in the forward position. And this is actually a pretty big shock. This is a Lossy Mini 8 front shock. A Lossy Mini 8 front shock. And this shock is a 75 millimeter extension with a 52 millimeter compression. 75 wide and 52 compressed, and that's the exact size that we happen to need for this build. So we've mounted the shock here at the bottom of the suspension mount on the K44, as you can see. It's a very nice, smooth, oil-filled shock. This is an aluminum body version that has the hole in the top and the bottom for M3 standard hardware. So we're very happy with these shocks. They give us the exact travel that we need to get the truck from our standard ride height into wheel tucking full compression, and everything matches up. These are a nice slow acting shock the way that they came just right out of the box, and we've got no spring preload on it yet, so there's still lots of room for us to adjust for the battery weight. And as you can see, we've also got the bumpers mounted. The bumper mounting to the frame was nothing more than a couple of screws on the outside holes. And then we added a washer and a lock nut on the inside in 2 positions. You can see the outside of the screws here, and then the nut and the washer here. We did exactly the same thing in the front. The front has 2 screws on the outside of the rail and 2 nuts on the inside with a washer, and there's the bumper mounting. So we're going to move on to finishing our driveline assembly now, and we've got a couple of more things to clean up. We want to make sure that we got the drive shafts in. We are going to use the wild bore drive shafts. I imagine that's probably the cheapest option you can get. They're a pretty tough plastic slider. For our class 1 build, we're not going to be doing any crazy heavy horsepower stuff. We've got a pretty small tire diameter, so we shouldn't have any problem using the wild bore shafts. And we're going to use this the dual front servo mount in the front actually for an electronics radio tray, because we already have a winch on the bumper, so we don't need to put an internal winch in this case. And we're going to continue our assembly, and we'll be back with more soon.